Thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate you making it here on such short notice, but we thought that it was important for us to not only amplify the wonderful children's march that happened here today. The community in East Atlanta, this community where they are proposing to build Cop City, came out this morning overwhelmingly to say that they don't want Cop City. So we had parents, we had children, we had other neighbors and community stakeholders who gathered right here in Brownwood Park today in East Atlanta to say that we are East Atlanta and Cop City is not a part of what we imagine and envision for this community. Also this morning, unfortunately, there is a place that was held as a commune for campers who wanted to stand in solidarity during this week of action. The place is called LEAF, L-E-A-F. That is the Lakewood Environmental Arts Foundation, a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to combating food insecurity here within the city of Atlanta, offered up their space to be used for people who did not feel safe camping in the forest because of the over-aggression of police there. But people wanted to show that they were in community with us, that they are in sync and in community with the land, and they wanted to stand in solidarity with this week of action. So we've offered up their space for those people to camp safely. Unfortunately, this morning, a gang of police officers descended upon that sacred space. They claimed that they had a warrant, which was never produced. They went inside, they took pictures of people, they ID'd people. There was one arrest made because one person in attendance had an outstanding parking ticket in Cherokee County. So, before the police come out and say, we raided this place where all of these outside aggressors were, and we picked up some violent offenders, we want you to know that our brothers and sisters who are standing with us in solidarity, just saying, hey, we want to camp here since we don't feel safe camping in the People's Park that's been overrun with police repression and aggression. They raided that place. They snatched people up. Some people were sleeping. They took pictures of people. They took their IDs, and they searched and searched, found nothing else, never produced a warrant, and only one person was arrested because of an outstanding parking ticket. Atlanta, this has got to stop. Somebody has got to stand up against these police agencies who are overly aggressive toward our community. On Thursday night, we held a very peaceful and successful march in downtown Atlanta, starting at the King Center. And Thursday night, we had a reporter who was harassed by the police. We had someone who was stopped by the police and asked if he was picking up protesters, taken out of the vehicle, handcuffed for no reason. They couldn't find a reason to detain him any longer, so they had to let him go. But Atlanta, this is why we're standing against Cop City. Because if Cop City is built, you can guarantee that you won't even be able to go to the grocery store without being harassed by the police for no reason at all. There is no reason why people who were at a safe commune, simply camping out, doing nothing else but being in community together, honoring the land that gives us so much, no reason that they should have been displaced the way they were this morning. This is why we don't want Cop City. Cop City is a symbol of police repression. Cop City is a symbol of the oppression of the people of Atlanta. I want you to look around and see the families here in this park today. These are people who came because they're concerned for their children. These are people who are concerned because they don't want their city overrun by militarization. There are many environmental issues that are tied to the building of Cop City, and all of it ties back to the fact that right now Atlantans are being targeted simply because they disagree with the administration. This reminds me of President Trump, who decided he was going to go after everybody who stood against him. Right now, Mayor Andre Dickens and the city of Atlanta have chosen to target every community that will not stand for Cop City. But if you are going to continue to target us, Mayor Dickens, we are going to continue to stand. We are going to continue to march. We are going to continue to show up at your council meetings. We are going to continue to let people know that Cop City is not what we want here in East Atlanta, but we don't want it anywhere because nobody deserves to have to live in fear. Nobody should have to worry about if their children are walking home from school, if they're going to be followed by police. Nobody should have to worry that simply being in community with their neighbors is a dangerous act because they're going to be targeted and harassed by police officers. Right now, I want to call up my indigenous relative,
Tell us your name.
Jordan. My name is Reverend Kiana Jones, Keyannajo-N-E-S. And I want to...
Do you know how many people were arrested?
I'm sorry. Once again, there was only one person arrested this morning. One person had an outstanding parking ticket, and that's the only person who was arrested.
How many people occupied this space this morning?
I'm not quite sure exactly how many people occupied the space, but there were no more than 50 people in the space. Again, one arrest. Only one. Everybody was ID'd. Everybody was photographed by police. Only one person arrested for a parking ticket. No violent offenses.
What did they tell you at the time of the raid? Did they tell anybody or you? What was the explanation for why they were there?
From reports on the ground, the police claimed that they had a warrant, but there was never a warrant produced.
A warrant for the building?
For that property to be searched.
I heard from one protester, I'm just wondering if you can confirm, one person who was there said that they had about 20 guns pointed in their face.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, reports on the ground did say, and this is from people who are directly there, those people who were detained, that when the police came in, there were no less than 20 guns being pointed at them. And again, this is for people who were simply camping out, doing nothing else.
Is there anybody who has any video of that happening, any cell phone video of that?
We are not sure who has cell phone video right now. I do know that there was a request for some legal observers at the time. Not sure what those legal observers have on video, but I do know that the request was made because one thing that we are very careful about is interacting with police without a record of that. So we always try to call for legal observers whenever police presence comes about.
What time did this raid happen?
Oh, this was this morning. This was before 9 a.m. this morning.
And one last question. Can you tell us how long was this safe haven there before they took the raid?
So Leaf was already there, but they were amplifying their mission this week for the week of action. So since people began to descend upon the city of Atlanta this past Saturday for the week of action, Leaf was definitely there as a safe haven for those who wanted to camp but didn't feel safe in the forest.
And obviously they don't feel safe in the...
Yeah, at this point I don't know if they feel safe anywhere. But
Peace, everybody. My name is Kamal Franklin, K-A-M-A-U, last name Franklin, F-R-A-N-K-L-I-N. The organization I'm representing is Community Movement Builders. So I'd like to say quickly, this movement has been repressed by the state, by the city, since its very beginnings. When we first started organizing in 2021, when we had rallies and demonstrations, which were supposed to be lawful rallies, under the Constitution, they were supposed to be protected rallies. We would have police break them up, throw people to the ground, pepper spray them, and arrest them. We had over 20 arrests in our first years of rallying and demonstrating against CopCity. At the time, those folks were charged with resisting arrest, obstruction of governmental administration. And then the police decided to step up their tactics. And they started to form a task force that included the Atlanta Police, the DeKalb County Police, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Georgia State Troopers, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Homeland Security, where they began to talk about bringing charges of domestic terrorism against organizers and activists. And they held true to their word. So in December, they raided the forest and arrested approximately 6 activists and organizers, forest offenders, who were doing nothing more than being next to trees or sitting in tree huts. And those folks were charged with domestic terrorism. They had no evidence whatsoever to connect them to anything else except an act of civil disobedience by being in the forest. They didn't have any evidence whatsoever to connect them to any prior acts. But what they did was charge them with domestic terrorism. And then they went back into the forest in January 18th. They arrested another 5 and 6 activists and organizers, forest defenders. And they charged those people with domestic terrorism. And as we know, they also killed a forest defender, Tortuguita, which evidence has now come out through an independent autopsy that their hands were up and that they were sitting cross-legged on the ground. And ever since then, they've continued in these tactics. As just mentioned, 35 new arrests, 22 of them domestic terrorism. And so now we're coming to a point where they're raiding houses, where they're telling organizers and activists that they can't stand on corners and legally give out leaflets without being given orders to disperse. Clearly First Amendment protected activity if the so-called Constitution is to be enforced and thought about as a real document. People have a right to protest, they have a right to express their anger, they have a right to say that they don't want Cop City to happen. And they have the right to do that without being harassed and repressed and threatened and charged with crimes they did not commit. So we continue to stand in solidarity with everyone who's doing organizing and activism, not only here in Atlanta, but across the country, and at this stage across the globe, to fight to make sure that Cop City never happens. So we are here to stand with our comrades, our organizers, our fellow folks who are out here in the streets doing this work. We want to make sure that they are protected, and we want to make sure that the narrative that criminalizes protesters ends now. And that instead, we talk about the real criminals, which is the Atlanta Police Department, the mayor, the governor, and at this stage, the federal government, because they've been involved in the suppression and repression of this movement. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.